Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Backlot Pass. I'm honored to be joined on this episode by a wonderful actor and a great teacher of acting at Keep It Real Acting Studios. If you look at her IMDb page, it seems like she's been in just everything. The wonderful Judy Kain. Judy, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good, Samuel. Thank you so much for having me. This is a pleasure.
Well, it's a pleasure being able to speak with you. And like I was saying, it seems like you've been in just everything. It's pretty amazing seeing all the different credits that you have.
Well, I have been doing it for a long time. I think I've been in SAG for 42 years, but it's believe me, the actor, I don't think I'm alone in this. The actor always, can they tell you everything they've been in? No, but they can tell you what they haven't been in. It's like, oh, that one show I auditioned for 7 times. 6 feet under, 7 times I auditioned and never got in. It's crazy, but I'm very, very grateful to be continuing to work, and I hope I hope the strike isn't too long or too painful, and get right back to it, because it's what I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned the strike because I mean, there's just so much going on right now. There's the possible SAG-AFTRA strike looming. There's the writer's strike that's been ongoing. What are your thoughts on everything that's just been going on?
I mean, there's a lot of issues that need to be ironed out. We don't get to renegotiate our contracts very often. It's 2 years, sometimes 4 years. So a lot can go unaddressed during that period of time. And if we don't address some of the issues that are looming right now, mostly streaming and AI, we're gonna be buried. I mean, there's a group of thousand of A-list actors who are really encouraging SAG to strike, because these issues are preventing people from really making a living. And I'm sure that people in Ohio or Arizona think we're all millionaires, but we're not. We're job to job. It's almost as if we're freelance. And so every job counts. The pay of it is considerably less than it was in the good old days, the 80s and the 90s, where you could do a couple jobs a year and live on it for 3 years. So very different with streaming, Hulu and Amazon, and yeah. So I'm not thrilled about it, and I'm not thrilled about not working either. It's hard. It's like taking a fish and putting him out of water and expecting him to thrive. An actor needs to act. An actor needs to at least be auditioning, because that's the craft. And I've had to find some other things to do to keep myself satisfied, satiated, and creatively stimulated, because unfortunately we are creatives. That's what we do. We're creative people, and we're not having the opportunity right now. So that's my sob story, Sam.
Yeah. So what other stuff have you been doing kind of during, this, crazy sort of time, and a kind of an uncertain time, I guess.
Well, the good news for someone like me, I've done over 400 commercials over the span of 42 years. So the commercials are not on strike. So I have been shooting a good amount of commercials. I think I have 5 running now, and one to air soon. 2 to air soon. So that's good. And I do love doing commercials. They're like little mini movies. I just got to work with Magic Johnson. just last week. Was it last week? Yeah, I think it was last week or the week before. And that was a pleasure. He's a really lovely guy, and I think it's going to be a fun spot. And got to work with, well, I hope I don't butcher his name, the big sports agent, Drew Rosenhaus. Is that his name? If you're not a sports guy, I'm not, but it's
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
yeah. I got to work with him. So, that's fun. That's fun. And that is not, commercials are not on strike and won't be. So that keeps me busy.
Well, hey, that's good to hear. It's good to hear
Yeah.
that you've still been able to, you at least have the commercials, right? So
Yes, I have the
that's good.
commercials, and I am in an acting class with Howie Deutsch, who directed Pretty in Pink amongst many, many other things. And he's amazing, and the people in the class are amazing, and that keeps me, oiled, oiled up, ready to go, tuned up. And other than that, I'm looking into doing some theater during the time of the strike, just to keep busy. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Always trying to stay productive. That's very
Yes.
important.
Yes. And I have my studio and I'm teaching, which is great. And I love helping other actors. There were a couple of people when I came to LA way many moons ago, who were very helpful in just showing me the ropes and what to do and where to go. And it was a completely different time. I mean, Sam, there was no internet. There were no cell phones, we all had pagers, and we'd meet in person in little groups and share information that we had gleaned about who was casting what, and drive across town and hand them our headshot, in the hopes to get an audition, and you get an audition by the agent calling your service, you going to a payphone, picking up the call, calling your agent, getting the information, writing it down, and then going and driving and picking up the material. I mean, it was a completely different time. Now everything is, in real time. You get a text, you get an email, that's your notice, and it's very impersonal, but it's much quicker. So, and you can look up anything you need to look up online, and there's no reason or excuse to not know the material, to watch an episode, to look at the director, to figure it all out before you audition. So yeah.
It's crazy how how everything has evolved so much, and really just a short span of time. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, 42 years is a good amount of time, but I look back on those days with a lot of fondness, because you really you worked for every audition you got. You worked for it, at least I felt like I did. I had worked for it. I had found out who was casting. Even with an agent, you still dug out your own auditions, and drove around and marketed yourself with your headshot, and you'd meet people, and it was a completely different time. Things really have changed where, I can go months without talking in person to my agents. Months. It's all email or text. It's crazy.
Yeah, it certainly is. Although I am glad that email exists, because that's how I was able to get in touch with you. So for that,
True.
I am glad.
Yes, no, it's opened up things in one area, but it's kind of shut down personal communication a little bit, and miss it.
Yeah. In-person interaction, that's my favorite. I always, every time I just have a conversation with someone, I cherish it, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's what you're doing here, which is great.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I want to get kind of into just a bit of your, kind of background. I saw you were born in San Mateo, which is really cool. just kind of how did you get interested in acting, and kind of how did that journey begin for you?
I truly feel I was born with it. I mean, I was performing in my house for my parents and my brothers early on, 4 or 5. We were putting on shows for the neighborhood. And, my brothers are all extremely cerebral. There is not a creative bone in their bodies. So, the fact that I would get them to be in these little shows for the neighborhood was amazing. But I had no idea, and my parents had no idea that there was a place for me in the world, the entertainment world. It just didn't exist for them. So it took going to I think it was junior high or high school when I got on the forensic team, and was in the play acting division and started winning a lot of awards at the competitions for a little play I was doing. And that sparked it. And she was Mrs. Schoenfeld. She was really encouraging and encouraged me to continue on and to be in the plays and stuff in high school, which I did, and decided that I wanted to go to college and study acting. And that's what I did. I didn't know really there was anything else other than theater. I really didn't. So at that time, my parents were transferred to Wisconsin. So that's where I was. And I just knew theater. So that's what I thought I would do, is be an actress in theater. And did come out to Berkeley, back to my California roots, and did some theater. And on a whim, I moved to LA on a whim. Didn't know anybody. And I just came here and started. I just started.
Yeah. And then the rest was history, right?
Yeah, right. The rest was history. Yeah, it's true. There was a paper called Drama Log. That's what it was called. It's now called Backstage, but Drama Log. And you'd get it every Thursday. And sometimes I'd go to the paper, the newsstand Wednesday night, when they dropped them off, and I'd get it and I'd look up all the auditions and submit my headshot. And I got in a movie called Grad Night. I think you can see it some places.
Yep.
That was the first thing I ever did. And first professional thing I ever did. And then I got an agent and started working and doing commercials and television. My first show was Three's Company.
Yes, it was a legendary show. Yeah.
Legendary show, Three's Company. And, I kind of naively expected after it aired that, the phone would just begin to ring. And that offers would come in. And of course, that did not happen. It was back to, like I said, finding that next job. So, yeah. And I'm still doing it today. And that's what an actor does. An actor auditions, an actor works on his craft, and every once in a while you get a job, and some of them are fantastic and some of them aren't.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Grad Night, because that, when I was looking through your IMDb, that was something I found so intriguing, because I could find very little information about the movie online. I would try to find a place to watch it. I could not find a single place to watch it. I don't even know if they even made a VHS or whatever.
They did, and it did air. It's a little bit of a sore subject. It was supposed to be deferred pay. It was the last time I ever did anything that said deferred, because we never got paid. And they did sell it, and Russ Woody was in it, and he went on to write for amazing shows, Murphy Brown, and just a huge writing career. I don't think anybody else in it went on to stardom, so to speak. But but it was, I shot it up in Sacramento, a couple of weeks up in Sacramento. We had a really great time. It was a classic sort of coming of age, graduation from high school. And, never got paid, never saw it done.
Really? Wow. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. But you learn your lesson, right? You learn
Right.
your lesson.
Yep. And hey, that was the beginning, right? That was like the first thing, and then I mean everything has a beginning. So
Everything has a beginning, and I learned, but I had a great time on the shoot. I mean, every job has taught me something, either what not to do or what to do, or how to go further in my career, or just working with really great people. Yeah, so it's every single job has led me to where I am today.
yes, of course. And then after grad night, you had your first TV role, like you mentioned, on Three's Company. How did you get that? How did you get that role?
Well, it's a funny story because as you can tell, I'm kind of a go-getter. So I knew Jimmy Coco, who was an actor, James Coco. We used to play cards, and we were friendly. And James Coco, played poker with the producers, who I'll forget their names now, the producers of Three's Company. And he said to me, well, send him a picture. So I sent them a picture with a note saying, I'm friends with James Coco. I understand you guys play poker together, and he speaks highly of you, and I would love to be considered for anything that you're doing. So the next thing I know, I get called in for Three's Company for a job, for an audition. And of course, at that time, they were in the room, and their interpretation of the little note that I wrote is, so Jimmy Coco says you'd be great on this show. And I said, well, I would be. Anyway, I got the part and had a great time doing it. It was with Joyce DeWitt, and oh my gosh, why am I blanking? The star lead. Help me. Help me, Samuel.
There was a John Ritter and
John Ritter. Thank you, John Ritter. And it was the replacement blonde, and I can't, Susan Barnes, I think it was. Susan Barnes, you're testing my memory now, but anyway, it was a great episode. It was all about like online dating, or putting an ad in the paper. I think it was sort of like their version of Match.com, and it was really a sweet episode. And my first real job, and I still get residuals on that today.
well, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. Every time I get one, I think, oh, look at that. It's usually for like $100 or something. It's it's a nice reminder of my roots, my beginning.
Yeah. And I think it's great that on grad night, you didn't get paid, but on Three's Company, you're still getting paid to this day.
Still getting paid 42 years later. Yes, it's great. It's fantastic. And that's the whole idea of residuals, is your face is out there, you have exposure, you should be paid for that exposure. So anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Three's Company, that would that was like the first one for you, because you would have many appearances on many sitcoms, throughout, your career. I think many people remember you from that Seinfeld episode, the Chinese restaurant, which is, I even listened to the podcast you did about it on that. So, like, it was like a Seinfeld fan podcast, and that was so awesome. You appeared on another massive sitcom that's still wildly popular to this day. I have there's a ton of people who still watch and love it. Friends, which you appeared on, and you played the casting director for a soup commercial that Joey does the audition for. What was
Matt
your
LeBlanc
experience like on that show?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that was a great show. I mean, at the time, back in the day when you do that was a three camera sitcom. So three camera being they shoot it in front of a live audience. And I believe that's how they did that. And so it's like doing theater, and the stars were all there, and although my scene was with David Schwimmer and Matt LeBlanc. David Schwimmer was in the lobby, and Matt came in to audition for the soup commercial, which my son and I still make fun of it today. If we're having some soup, and I'll go noodle soup. So I'll still make jokes about that, but yeah, it was great. It was great fun. And then, just a couple years ago, I did a scene with Jennifer Aniston in the morning show. So
Yes.
we've come a long way. But yeah, I was known as a character actress and funny, and really known for that in the beginning. I could not get even seen for a drama. People did not think I could do drama, and comedy is much harder. If you can do comedy, you can pretty much do anything. But to take a serious dramatic actress and put them in a comedy, I mean, they're just there's timing, there's instinct, there's a gut sense about comedy that doesn't necessarily ring true in drama. So I had a really hard time breaking through and getting people to take me seriously as a dramatic actress as well, doing procedurals. I think LA Law was one of the first that I did. I could be wrong about that, but the casting director, Junie Lowy Johnson, had cast me in some comedies, so she knew my work and she took a chance, and that was a great episode as well. Yeah, I think that was one of the first times I had done a more dramatic role, and then now, plenty. There's more dramatic parts than there are comedy parts, but believe me, put me on a sitcom, put me on a 3-camera sitcom, I'm in heaven. Absolute heaven. I love it. I love the rehearsal. I love the collaborative feeling. I love the fact that during the week on a Wednesday you have the producer run through, so you get people right there in front of you that you're doing the scene for, and then Friday or whatever tape day it is, a live audience is there of just people who want to come see a show, and that's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's really the best. I love it.
Yeah, I can imagine, how fun it is being able to perform on a sitcom, because there is that live audience, and it kind of boosts your energy in a way. It's kind of I guess in a way it's similar to kind of being like on stage, with an audience and everything.
Yeah, you feel that energy, and of course the laughter. Of course, if your line lands and they laugh, you've done a good job. You might come back again. So if you make it work and they love you and the audience loves you, it's a win for everybody. And yeah, I mean, I love it. I'd like to do one right now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, whenever they need to get you on more got to get you on more sitcoms now. Although it's interesting because most of them are now single camera, I think. They're kind of there's a shift away from like the traditional multi-cam setup these days.
Yes, and I don't have the answer as to why that is, because it's such an efficient use of time. It's such an efficient use of time. It doesn't take any more time to shoot an episode 3-camera. In fact, the hours are blissful. Come in at 9 or 10, you're out by 4, one late day when you tape, but that's it. I mean, who wouldn't want that? And you get to rehearse, which you don't get to do when you shoot a single camera. You really don't get to rehearse. And comedy needs rehearsal. You need to be able to try some things. You need to see, and you need the audience. So I'm not sure why they don't do more free camera. I just did a show called How We Roll, which was maybe my favorite ever, my favorite show ever. I think it's airing on Hulu, and Paramount Plus, but it's a beautiful story. It's a funny story about a true story about a steel worker, factory worker who gets let go from his job, and he becomes a pro bowler. And I play Mimi, who is, a regular at the bowling alley, and salty and sassy and very fun part. Unfortunately, a lot of it, they went from shooting 24 minutes to 20 minutes is what CBS gave them at the end. So a lot of my stuff was cut, but I had a great experience doing that. Really great experience. With Pete Holmes and Katie Lowe's. Yeah. So, and that was just, gosh, it was in COVID. So it had to be 2022. I think it was last year. So, yeah.
Well, I think there should be a separate cut of the show that just has all of your scenes, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Would you call them? Please call
Yes.
them and let me know. We'd like to see that. I'd like to see it too. Some funny stuff. Really funny. It was a great character. I mean, it was just shameless, kind of a shameless, oh, well, it's the kind of part you'd love to play, where really no inhibitions. And it was great fun. Usually I play more snooty, judgmental, upper crust, but this gal, she'd have a beer for breakfast, and yeah, she was great. Mimi.
And sometimes those are the best roles, when you get a role
Yes.
you can just sink your teeth right into.
Yeah, it was great, and great directors. It was really fun, and really great people. Those are the ones you live for. Those are the ones you just really enjoy. And then there's other jobs that you just show up, do your work, and cash the check.
Yep, exactly. So we were talking about this a bit before we started the recording, but we have to we got to talk about this because you were in a video game, and as a fan of video games, I think that's just so awesome. So you were in a video game. It was released in '92 for the Sega CD, a very old console. This video game was about Mark Wahlberg, of course, when he was known as Marky Mark. And in the game, you played the mom of I guess like the main character, whatever, in the cutscenes. And it was very entertaining. It looked like you were having so much fun. There's videos on YouTube, and they have your scenes in the game, and it's awesome.
Oh my gosh, you know what? I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to look it up, and like you did, and watch it, because I don't think I ever saw it.
Really?
I honestly had no clue what I was shooting. This was pre I have a son who was born in '93, so this was pre that. So I really had no reference to video games or anything. It just went right over my head. So it's just one of those jobs I was like, okay, what am I doing? But had a great time doing it. But I had no idea who Marky Mark was. No idea. And of course, no idea that Mark Wahlberg would become Mark Wahlberg, No. I'm sure he, looks back on it too, going, wow, that's how I started. Right. But that's the thing. You start where you start. And you do what you do. And like I was saying, you just never know when one job is going to turn into the job.
Yep, exactly. But it's interesting because not many people can say they've been in a video game, and I mean they're probably like teenagers playing this game, in the '90s, and then they see you in it. I mean, it's pretty cool, I would say.
Well, I'm glad you think so. And listen, do feel like one of the very fortunate people who have really consistently worked from 1978. Really, I've consistently worked and still do, you know, so that's it's rare. It's rare. I feel like I'm a journeyman actor, you know, blue collar actor, just out there doing my job and, you know, continue to work, and I'm really very grateful for that.
Yeah,
Very.
absolutely. And that kind of leads into, I want to talk about the role which you won a SAG award for, which is so awesome. And I think it's wonderful that your work got recognized. I think that's amazing. Of course, for your role on Mad Men. I just want to, I want to hear from you. What did it mean to you to have, your great work on this show, get honored with such a prestigious award?
Well, let me be, you know, fully transparent. The SAG award was given to the entire cast of Mad Men for the show that season 3. I have it here hanging on the wall somewhere. It's over there. I got to hold the SAG award and won an Emmy as well. I got to hold the Emmy, went to an Emmy party for it. But I was in 4 episodes that season, and I remember, I mean, the show, you know, by season 3 was quite renowned. You know, it was, you know, Mad Men was like, oh, Mad Men, you know, Matt Weiner, you know, wrote, you know, Sopranos, you know, I mean, he was well known, and it was a classic, it was a coup to get on the show. And you know, I played Elizabeth Moss's secretary, and you know, complete opposite of her, in that I was coming from, you know, very principled, you know, mature woman. Women are not are seen, not heard. You know, you just do your job, and then it's completely different than you know, what her character was. So that was the conflict there, and it was a beautiful it was such a beautiful opportunity. And I'm telling you, at the desk, I had my little desk, my little secretary desk. Inside the desk were authentic, inside, nobody ever saw them, swing line staplers, pens from the era, the 1960s. Everything you had on was authentic, down to the pantyhose with garters. I'm telling you, everything you had on was authentic from the period. There wasn't any sort of smoke and mirrors. Everything was authentic. And I think that made the show, I mean, you just walk differently when you're wearing that, and you feel different. I mean, it was an amazing experience to work on that show. And highly, highly top secret. We would go in for a read through with the whole cast. You would get the script at that time. You'd walk in, they'd hand you a script, and on your way out, you would have to hand them back the script. And they did not want scripts out there floating in the world at large. You couldn't talk about the episode. You couldn't talk about being on the episode. You couldn't talk about it at all. It was highly secretive. And I think that's how they maintained their, you know, the intrigue of each episode, you know, and it would drop one a week. You know, it wasn't like now you can watch all 10 episodes tonight, you know. It was really an honor to be on that show. Really was. And everybody, John Hamm, everybody was so professional. And you know, a good show when everybody on it is happy to be there, when they feel lucky to be on the show. And that was the case with that. Everybody was happy to be there and knew that they were in a good thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's very important to have a good work environment, and I think that always contributes, to making things better when everyone's having a good time and everyone's enjoying their work.
Yes, absolutely. And they did. Most shows, people are happy. Sometimes, people, if a show runs too long, and you get in on the tail end, it's like everybody's just done. And that's not fun. But, I think after the strike, people are going to be really grateful to be working.
Oh,
Really grateful. Yeah.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, because so that role on Mad Men, you were mentioning how, how it took you a while to get these dramatic roles, and then but now it's like you're doing tons of them, and you're showing that you can absolutely do that.
Yeah, no, I think it just took, this town is a little fickle, you get typecast, of course, which is not necessarily a bad thing, um, but once one person takes a chance on you and you have, a dramatic role, then everybody else follows suit, right? So everybody else, was, and I had a good reputation around town as being, consistent, professional, actress who showed up and did the work. So yeah, it took a couple and then everybody else followed suit. And yes, I don't have that issue today, but I do love doing sitcoms.
Yes.
If you said, what's your dream job? It would be a sitcom, 3 camera.
You know what they should do? I think they need to give you your own sitcom.
Ah! From your lips. Oh, yes. Oh, nothing would be greater. And I wouldn't mind, honestly, I wouldn't mind like, Doris Roberts' role on, Everybody Loves Raymond. I mean, to me, that would be ideal as well. Doesn't have to be the Judy Kain show. I could literally be somebody's mother, which I would love to do because I am somebody's mother. Yeah, thank you for saying that. And that would be wonderful. And if it happens, fantastic. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Yes. Well, hey, I'll start calling up people and seeing like,
Oh, would you?
yeah,
Yeah, let's
seeing if we can make this happen. So
I like it. Well, the energy's out there, and that's important. Energy out there.
yes, I also think that honestly, they need to get you back on the soap operas because I loved your role on Young and the Restless as the
Thank you.
judge. That was another one of your performances that I just loved.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I thought for sure, they would rotate the judges and, have another, have a repeat judge, but that has not occurred for me yet. But I have such respect for soap actors. I really do. They have pages of dialogue, pages, and you get 2 takes. 2. That's it. And they want you to be word perfect. There's not a lot of room there for, making stuff up. So word perfect. And these people crank it out and, they'll be schmoozing and having some fun. And all of a sudden, boom, they're in the scene. It blows my mind. They are true professionals. What an amazing training ground, soap operas. So if you can get on one, anyone out there, do it because it is great training. Really. They are the real deal.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yep, I would agree. And it's funny that you mentioned the training because I think, I want to get into the portion of this interview where we talk about the training that you're giving,
Oh,
to like other actors and stuff and your students. I want to know kind of how did you get into this thing of, teaching acting? How did this all begin for you?
well, I'll tell you, my teacher, my commercial teacher, who was Carolyn Berry, she's since passed away, called me one day and said, hey, I need a sub. Would you be willing to come in and teach? This time I had probably done, 250 commercials. of which some of them she had cast me in. And I said, absolutely, yeah. I didn't know all the technical stuff. Like at that time, it was VHS. You'd record the actors on a VHS tape and a big deck and, run the camera. And I had to be taught that because I did not know that. But once I learned that, it was great fun to teach. And I had a little business with a friend of mine where we were doing actor showcases in front of casting directors. And my business partner said, why are you teaching for somebody else? Why don't you teach for us? And I said, well, I don't like to enroll people. And, I don't really want to, try to get people to take class from me. And she goes, I'll do it. I said, okay. So she put this class in place, and that's how it started. And, subsequently we ended that business and I opened up Keep It Real Acting, and we offer commercial training, television and film training, branding, headshots, improv for commercials, classes for kids, and I did have a physical studio for many years. This was 8 years before the pandemic. And I'd get up in the morning. I'd love to go there. People would stop by. Actors would come in and bring flowers because they had booked jobs and were signed with agents. And it was just so fun. There was a coffee bean downstairs, It was a great Thai restaurant downstairs, and it was fantastic. It really was. It was like my home away from home. And I'd bring the dog in, and it just was wonderful. Wonderful people working for me, wonderful teachers. And then, of course, the pandemic happened, and we transitioned immediately to Zoom. But and I closed the studio, I think 3 months after COVID, in June of 2020. So, but online is great because, all the auditions are taped, everything's recorded at home on, a little iPhone. So, it makes sense to teach online as well, because those are pretty much how you're auditioning, is in front of a little green dot. So, but I miss the people, and I miss the community, and just it was really nice to go to work. And it really is nice to be in person and see people have that aha moment. It really is. I love teaching and helping actors. I just love it. I love to see them change. I love to see them get it, because it is something you can teach. It takes some time. Sometimes it takes time, but it is something you can teach. And it's a beautiful thing to see people get it and to be excited by it, and to know, and they feel it. They feel like, oh yeah, that felt really good. Yeah. And it looked good too. So it's nice. I do love teaching. I really love it. And I love getting notes and emails from people saying, thank you so much for all your encouragement, and thank you for the training. I used everything you said and I booked the job. It just makes me happy. Makes me happy. What were you going to say, Samuel?
Yeah. Like how would you describe, your teaching style?
Well, I'm very positive, but honest at the same time. So if I see something that needs to go, if I see a bad habit, or I see somebody going down a direction that I know where it's going to lead them, I will guide them to this, over to this path, but usually through questions. I'll ask them questions about the scene and what were they doing and who were they talking to and how do they feel about it, to get them to stop putting on the character and let the character come from within them. So I would say I'm very supportive, but I'm also very honest. I don't, just say, oh, that was so good. I don't do that. I haven't really made anybody cry. So that's a good thing. I'm not mean. But I do see, I think I have a really good eye for where the problem is in an actor, where they're possibly derailing themselves or where they could improve. I have a really good eye for that. And I'm able to help them because I know how to do it myself. I can help them get there. So, did that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I can definitely say that I mean, from at least from what I've been able to see, your teaching, it's helped a ton of people, been able to book more roles and stuff. I was looking at like your students have been able to book all roles in these big shows, these big movies and stuff. And it's like, you're a big part of that. And I can imagine that makes, you feel really good.
Oh, absolutely. It's, first, a phone call or an email saying I booked the job. Second, would be one of my students booked the job. Absolutely. It it feels so good to know that they have worked through something enough to be able to be successful. It's great. This is not an easy business. You haven't gleaned that it's not easy. And the hard part is that you never hear it. The only time you hear is if you book it. You don't hear, hey, you did great, but you don't hear anything. If you're up for a job, I don't know, I'm going to say as an architect or something, and it's down to the last 4 or 5 people, usually you get a letter or email or something saying, thank you so much. We went with somebody local or whatever, but you don't hear anything. You don't get any feedback. And that's hard because then the mind says, oh, maybe I'm not good, or maybe I need to do more, or maybe I need to be funnier, or maybe I need to be more serious, or you start sabotaging. And that's not a good place for an actor. It's not. So then you start pushing and on the character and forcing it or trying to think, what do they want? Well, they don't know what they want. They think they do, but they do not know until they see it, until you show them. That's the truth. Absolutely the truth. So,
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely agree with that. Absolutely. I'm curious, what are the biggest things, so let's say, a student has just completed a course with you. What are the biggest things, you want your students to have learned, in the course?
to take chances, to, for commercials, I would say give themselves the permission and the freedom to add a little something, a little improv, we call it a button, to really talk to a real person. There's no audience out there. So for commercials, that's really what I want actors to take away. And then, of course, there's levels to the class, like the advanced class that I teach in commercials. They literally are with a casting director. I have a casting director Zoom in and they do an audition and they give them a redirect in real time. And you can see how people get squirrely or nervous or how they act when someone's there and they all of a sudden the stakes are high. And that's what they're probably doing in the room or in the Zoom room on a callback. They're shooting themselves in the foot. So then after they leave, we talk about that and we talk about how they can stay more grounded, how they can be confident in their choice, knowing that their choice is true rather than second guessing it. I think that's what actors do is they get afraid that it's the wrong choice and they want to do it right. Well, there is no right way. There's only your way, justified by the work that you've done in breaking it down. And the same with theatrical as well. You're given circumstances, it's a a party, and you're meeting a old boyfriend, and that's the circumstances, but then really making it specific. And the more people can make it specific and let it affect them, let whatever's happening affect them. I mean, acting is all really using your imagination as if it was really happening. That's really what acting is. So the more that a person can do that and take that chance, a lot of people, it's this idea, and I know I say it all the time, put on the character. It's like, I think she should do this. I think she sounds like this. I think she would talk like this. Talk like yourself in that situation. Then it's going to be authentic. And then we're going to be moved. Then we'll be moved because it will be affecting you as well. That's when, you get goosebumps and go, that was great. That was great. So that's what I hope people leave with, is more confidence, some techniques. I hope they use them. Most people who book do say to me, I did what you told me to do, and and that's great. It's great. It works. It really does.
Well, I definitely hope that there's anyone who's watching or listening to this who wants to go into acting. They should absolutely sign up for one of your classes.
Oh, absolutely. And I do free, free 15-minute coachings with new students just to sort of see where you're at. And, I can tell in the first couple seconds, but I can. But it's nice to get to know people and kind of get a background. Almost every single person who starts coming to classes has thought about acting most of their life. Isn't that funny? But they, went and got a regular job or had kids, or, and then it's like, it's time for me. And I love that. I think that's awesome. Time for me now to do what I always wanted to do. Yes, it is. It's great. And if they put the work in, I swear, if they put the work in and the time in, they get results. They get results, which is fantastic. I've seen it over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's a really special thing that you're doing. You're kind of helping people, go after their dreams. And I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. And it's a small town in many ways. Small town, I know a lot of people know me. It's good to hook up with, a studio, or people who are well respected and who have connections. I think it really makes a difference. And I always say, every single person you meet, especially in the acting world, is a potential employer. Every person in class is a potential employer, because so-and-so is going to be doing a short film next week. And what happens if their lead can't, gets sick and they need somebody, they might think of you in the class. So it happens all the time, but every person you come across is a potential employer.
Yep, that's, connections are so important. So
important. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm speaking from someone who wants to go into journalism, so I can say the same thing, that connections very, very important.
Oh, well, that's a great field. Well, you're doing it. You're doing it right now. Podcasting is one of the newest forms of journalism. Really is very informative. It's great what you're doing, Sam.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Where can people find information about Kira, like, online?
Our Instagram is pretty happening. It's Keep It Real Acting. I also have Judy Kain as an Instagram as well, more personal stuff. And then our website is keepitrealacting.com. And all of our classes and information is there, and some of our success stories, and lots of bios, and lots and lots and lots of reviews from people. And Yelp, of course, is another great source. But email is the best because we're all spread out. My staff and I are all kind of spread out, so we use one common email for most everything, keepitrealacting@gmail.com. And all questions will be answered, and you can set up a free coaching if you like to. Just email and we'll set something up for him.
Hey, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
And anyone who's watching or listening, wants to get into acting, or wants more info, just go contact Judy, and she'll get you started.
That's right. Simple. And it is pretty simple. It does take, I always make this analogy, everybody wants to have a successful career. Nobody wants to be unsuccessful. But it takes a commitment. I would not even think to go sign up for a marathon next month without training. I just wouldn't, I wouldn't make it one. You'd see me, on a stretcher over there, but you have to train. If you think of it as a sport, you have to train to really be good and be at your best, your personal best, because everybody's different. And it takes people different routes and time. But I think training is so important. I still take class. There has not been a time in the 42 years that I haven't been involved actively in my career. What I do, I can't be a dancer and not dance. So you have to keep it. There's always more to learn. Always more to learn. I haven't outgrown this business. So, and then when COVID happened and we all had to figure out, oh my God, how do we do a Zoom audition? That was crazy time, absolutely crazy, and figuring all that out. And so it's a completely different thing than being in the room and having somebody tell you what to do. Is completely different. So I had to master that in a very short period of time. And now if you don't know how to do it, it's been almost 4 years, so it's really, you got to figure it out. And if you need help, get help. But it's important to know how to, at least the rudimentary basics of Zoom and a couple of other sites that run. Actors Access has one, EcoCast Live, and just know how to do it, know how to work with a little pinprick of a camera. Framing, your lighting, make sure you sound okay, all that stuff that we never had to worry about. Never. So, but that's, things change, and the actor who stays active is the one who learns, pivots, as Ross said in Friends, pivot. Do you remember that episode, Samuel, where they're taking the sofa upstairs? Yeah, you gotta pivot. You gotta pivot. Yeah.
That special work ethic that you've had throughout your career, that's definitely gotten you places. It really has.
Yes, it has. And it's show business. It is a business. Anytime there's money involved, there's a business. So you have to present as a business person, which means professional, and know what you're doing. Be an expert in your career. And that's what I try to do.
Yes.
That's what I try.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Judy, what else can I say other than just thank you so much for letting me speak with you today. Truly an honor. As a fan of your work, like I said, just really an amazing opportunity being able to speak with you today, honestly.
Well, it was my pleasure. There's one thing I love to talk about, and that's acting. I love to talk about it. I love anything to do with it. So this was my pleasure. And I hope the podcast is a huge success.
Yes, yes, of course. Well, hey, and thank you so much for that. I appreciate. I
You're
appreciate.
welcome. I hope to hear from all your listeners. Keep it real acting at gmail.com.